For proof that Romans were shorter, go to Project Gutenberg, find De Bello Gallico by Julius Caesar, who said, "And on the first arrival of our army they made frequent sallies from the town, and contended with our men in trifling skirmishes. Speaking of the Gauls, afterwards, when hemmed in by a rampart of 12 feet, and 15 miles in circuit, they kept themselves within the town. When, Venae having been brought up in a mound raised, they observed that a tower also was being built at a distance. They at first began to mock the Romans from their wall, and to taunt them with the following speeches. For what purpose was so vast a machine constructed at so great a distance? With what hands, or with what strength did they, especially men of such very small stature, for our shortness of stature, in comparison with the great size of their bodies, is generally a subject of much contempt to the men of Gaul. Trust to place against their walls a tower of such great weight. Romans were not so short. Our shortness of stature in comparison with the great size of their bodies." Boom! Straight from the horse's mouth. The ancient Romans were shorter than the barbarians of the north. Therefore, anyone in Italy today who is tall and whose race is tall, like the blondes, you're not Romans, you're not Italians, you're frauds. I have Julius Caesar on my side. But when they saw that it was being moved, and it was approaching their walls, startled by the new and unaccustomed sight, they sent ambassadors to Caesar about peace. Barbarians were taller but inferior, many surrendering. Then, speaking of Germans, it is said that they are men of vast stature of body. Germans, men of huge stature. Therefore, tall races are not native to the South. Someone will say, "But he was talking about Southern Europeans back then when they had inferior nutrition." As if. Now that they eat better, they have grown. Genetics trump diet. Look at Africans. They're starving to death, many of them. And I pity them for that, but the point is, just because you don't have a lot of food doesn't mean you're going to be short. They're tall even without much food. Genetics change, which is why the Chinese are now no longer Chinese. Now some are blondes and look like Russians, and others look like Indians. Oh wait, that's false. The Chinese look the same as the original Chinese. Lives of 12 Caesars. Suetonius Tranquillus. It is said that he was tall, Julius Caesar, of a fair complexion, round-limbed, rather full-faced, with eyes black and piercing, and that he enjoyed excellent health, except towards the close of his life. Although it says he was tall, this is relative to the average height of Latins. He was tall for a short guy. Recall, he said, our shortness of stature compared to that of the barbarians. With eyes black and piercing, showing he was not like Celts in his colors of eyes, and that implies also hair. Because people with brown eyes tend to have black hair, people with light eyes tend to have light hair. In Germania, Tacitus said, "Unde habitus quoque corporum tamquam intento hominum numero, idem omnibus truceset caerulei oculi rutilae comae magna corpora." Big bodies. Some pathetic loser who can't accept reality said, so they simply said they were fat, cool. What a ridiculous and desperate misinterpretation. Context says the Germans were poorer than Romans, so the Romans were the fatter ones, if anything. Also, the Romans met most often were warriors or slaves who therefore were not fat. They were what Tacitus said. They had big frames or big bodies. Magna corpora. He also said caerulei oculi, meaning blue-eyed. I don't Latin yet though, despite Spanish being a modern form of Latin, so my first language is Latin, sort of. I use sources of experts for the definitions of these terms because I need to know from someone who knows what they're talking about. Now, you don't have to be an official expert to know what you're talking about. You don't need to get a degree from anyone to know what you're talking about. So I'm not doing the ad verecundiam fallacy. The ancient Romans said that the Germans were blue-eyed, but if Romans were also blue-eyed, he would not have to mention this because in Europe it would be universal. Instead, he has to point it out because it is different, remarkable, something non-Roman. Also, it is something that defines the German as opposed to being a mere variety, like in Spain where it does not predominate except where Germanics settle the most, the north. In some areas, because light eyes came from north, they're not native. Diodorus Siculus was an ancient Greek who said, "The women of the Gauls are not only like the men in their great stature, but they are matched for them in courage as well." So HBO, I think, is where this is from, and they're using a British actor to portray Julius Caesar, which is an insult to Julius Caesar. It's like trying to portray Genghis Khan by using an Indonesian who doesn't look like a Mongol, or by depicting Hirohito by using a Chinese person, except they have more in common physically in appearance than a British guy and a Roman Latin. I don't even know how to say his name. Ciaran Hinds. That's how Irish, that's how Celtic his name is. And here's more propaganda depicting Julius Caesar as looking like a German. Don't forget guys, Julius Caesar said Celts who are very similar to Germans. They're in the same spectrum of barbarians of the north. Their main difference is language, not really race. Julius Caesar said that they looked down on the Romans, including him, for being short. They were a different race, so he would not look like them. But they're depicting him here as looking just like northerners. This is nonsense. This is stupid. This is propaganda. So someone said that Romans like Julius Caesar were blonde. I said lie. Colore candido means of a white color, which can refer to skin or hair, but he was old in the context. So he had white hair where he was not bald, if that meant hair. Calviti means bald. So old age explains white hair. No need for you to color with your Barbie crayons, trying to make him into a blonde. Suetonius said his eyes were dark. Nigris getisque oculis, because nothing says blonde like has black eyes. And when I typed that many months ago, I laughed. But right now, I'm tired. And then this is called Barbarians, a recent show that people have praised because of how authentic it looks, except they're using a goth type of Italian with light eyes to depict a Roman, which is nonsense. It's stupid. And they do use the Latin language in the show, at least. And I don't think it's the bastardized Catholic Church Latin where they say cha-cha all the time, like cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Chimichangas, no. Look at this guy with his light eyes. That's not Roman. And what's this black lady doing over there with this random smear on her face? This is like an imaginary Star Trek alien species. This is not a real race in history. What is this? So even this guy of a mainstream type who would believe that Romans look like that, he doesn't complain about it. From what I see, Romo ramblings, he complains about the historical inaccuracy in this show. So when they're gonna lie about the black people, they're gonna lie about the white people too. Hollywood lies, depicting a Ptolemaic Greek as looking like a Scandinavian. This is retarded. They don't look like Vikings. You have to be an idiot to believe that. And I assume that this is depicting a Ptolemaic Greek. Maybe it's depicting Julius Caesar, or is this depicting like an actual legitimate Egyptian guy as white. What is going on here? Whatever. Regardless, they're lying about the race. So then we get into Troy, which is based on mythology. Of course, mythology is based on truth, but it has lies in it, which is why it's called mythology. And when people say that Greeks were blonde, they cite mythology like Achilles being blonde. Well, that's mythology. Blonde thieves of Greek glory rely on fables. Dionysus had hair that was blue, it is said. So does that mean that Greeks had blue hair? No. Similarly, Indians did not have blue skin. Then, in the movie 300, which is the most historically inaccurate movie in history probably, you have this blonde guy who's supposed to be a Greek. What a joke. And one I covered because he's a representation of the Antichrist, as I explained in Mario's of the Devil and other videos. And why do they have that pyramid implied? Tower of Babel alluded to? Well, the aforementioned explain. They lied about Persians, saying that Persians are black and homosexual, even though ancient as well as modern Iran execute homosexuals. They lied about Persians, they lie about Greeks, and they did. They darkened the barbarian actor to play as a Spartan. I remember seeing the movie for the first time. I didn't see the part with the dumb orgy. I didn't know that was coming, but I had to look away. I regret going to Hollywood theaters. All Hollywood movies are shit. I don't think that I've ever seen a good movie in my entire life. All of them have some propaganda of the devil or some message that isn't good. But I remember seeing his beard. I was like, man, it'd be cool to have a beard like that. Later, I would have a beard like that. I just didn't trim it that way. So, nothing says Spartan like looks Scottish. What's next? They're going to depict Greeks as black. This is Sparta. No, this is Edinburgh. Or as they pronounce over there, Edinburgh. What a retarded pronunciation for this spelling. It's Edinburgh. Don't put a G there if you're not going to pronounce it. Then you have this very popular movie with the actor Russell Crowe, who, by the way, did a movie called Master and Commander, or something like that, where he was playing the role of a British guy who went to the Galapagos Islands to promote macroevolution shit for the viewers to once again believe the same shit they were told to believe, which they double do. So in that case, he fit the role because he is British, or at least part British. But in this case, he's supposed to be a Roman, he's supposed to be a Latin guy. Yet, he's very clearly not. Let's count how much Northern European lineage he has. Welsh, English, German, Irish, Italian of a fake stock probably, Norwegian, Scottish, and Swedish. What a joke. What an absolute joke. Let's get the most barbaric guy we can find and depict a Latin Roman by him. What a joke. It's like they're going out of their way to do that. They picked to depict a Latin Italian. It's worse than using a Filipino to depict Genghis Khan. Part whatever it is next, God willing.